going to admit people in. I'll go ahead and get started. Right, welcome everybody. Our learning event today is Empowering Readers, Tools and Strategies to Support Reading Success. And this is session 1 of a 3-part series. The home-based document can be accessed via the QR code, tiny URL, and we'll also drop it in the chat. And closed captioning is enabled and available should you need it. Today, our training is brought to you by Open Access, Placer County Office of Education, and San Jose City Unified School District. I want to introduce some of the wonderful presenters and contributors to our Empowering Reader 3-part series. Amanda, if I butcher your last name, I'm so sorry. Amanda Killian is an educational technology specialist with Placer County Office of Education. Tracy Shaw-Green and Carrie Sherson are AAC and AT specialists with Placer County Office of Education. And we also have Jessica Rosenberg, an AT specialist with San Jose City Unified School District. And then Emily Desjardins and myself, Mimi Zimlik, we are the UDL AT content lead with Open Access. All right, so for those of you, I do see a lot of familiar names, so you guys will kind of have to hear the spiel again, but we want to let you guys know a little bit about who we are at Open Access. Open Access is one of the statewide special education resource lead. We are grounded in the foundational belief that with access to quality instruction, all students can engage, actively participate, and learn with inclusive settings. And what makes our project really unique is that we highlight the importance of learning and participation for all through universal design for learning, assistive technology, and augmentative and alternative communication. And we have three tiers of support, starting with our universals. And these include free resources available on our website, as well as a wide range of offerings and updates that we share across social medias. Our targeted supports includes training, coaching, and mentoring for schools and districts who've reached out to us on a voluntary basis. And when schools or districts are looking to build capacity in any of the 3 areas, DL, AT, or AAC, we here at Open Access are ready to support with implementation. And our last tier of support includes providing technical assistance to 7 LEAs throughout the state who have been identified as at the intensive level through the SIM process, the compliance and improvement monitoring. And we provide support for these districts by aligning and leveraging continuous support more within the statewide system of support. And really the ultimate goal of Open Access is to establish showcase sites across the state to highlight inclusive practices and actions. And we're currently collaborating with 4 districts to create UDL showcase sites and 1 district to develop an accessibility showcase site focused on AAC. If you want to learn more or have a resource, our Open Access flyer can be accessed by clicking on the image. And so the Placer County SELPA Open Access project is honored to work alongside some of our partners. We have Antelope Valley SELPA, North Inland SELPA, Humboldt County Office of Education, and Placer County Office of Education. And our project is funded by California Department of Education and California Collaborative for Educational Excellence. That's a mouthful. All right, moving on. One of the things that we really try to implement in our presentation is that we are committed to UDL principles by making our presentation as accessible as possible. And we try to do this by providing simple background with high contrast, providing access to digital and print materials whenever possible. We also provide alt text for all of our image, and we try to share multiple examples and non-examples of topics and concepts. And we give lots of options for participation and feedbacks and allow for individual reflection, small group and full group discussion. All right, moving on, Emily's gonna kind of go over some of our session objectives today.
All right, so we're hoped by the end of this first session is really that participants really can consider that learner variability within their own classroom, identify some common barriers that our learners might be facing when it comes to phonemic awareness and phonics, to be able to describe that phonemic awareness and phonics definitions, their role in early reading, and identify some classroom activities that could help build these skills. And so we're also hoping you're able to use some strategies to really increase some engagement during that phonemic awareness and phonics lessons. So our goal of this first session is really focusing on phonemic awareness and phonics. And in our following sessions, the second and third session, we're going to focus much more on fluency and comprehension. And there's going to be probably a heavier amounts of digital tools and digital resources. And so in these early skills, it's going to be a little bit of an early childhood focus for today. So another way to look at our session, or another way to visualize our journey for today, is our session path. So we're going to start with a little bit of a kind of UDL in a nutshell, very quickly talking about this concept of learner variability and barriers. And then we're going to dive into how we can support phonemic awareness skills for students, and then how we can support those phonics skills for students, have some reflection and wrap up. And then our hope is to really give you guys some time for collaboration and conversation throughout as well. So our inclusive welcome for today, we always, in all of our trainings, webinars, everything, we always like to start with an inclusive welcome. This is not something we made up, but it is part of the CASEL signature playbook, signature move. CASEL is the Collaborative for Social Emotional Learning. And the idea is, as learners, before we dive into our learning, it's nice to be able to have a way to connect with those that we're learning with, have some conversation, collaboration, just get us started. And there's lots and lots of different ways to do that. But for today, we're going to have you imagine your professional identity as a book on a shelf. And in the chat, if you could type the book title that captures maybe how you see yourself as a learning advocate, maybe a curious literacy ally, or a persistent word detective, or I did add a few other examples at the bottom here. And then also, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself in the chat and what your role is. We're just going to take a couple minutes to get to know each other here. And then the second part of this is going to be, after you've introduced yourself and thought about it, think about the learners on your bookshelf, on your shelf. And in one word or one emoji, share a strength that you notice in the students you work with. So maybe multilingual, focused, creative, struggling, resilient. I guess struggling isn't a strength. One strength that you notice in your students. And as you post, we're going to notice that variety of responses here. And really, we want to think about, there's no such thing as an average learner, right? We're all in different places. Ooh, Giovanni, AP Literature and Composition. Awesome. Rudy. Rudy's pranking us, and I love it. If you can't read this, please help. Ooh, the close read, enhancing the love of literature through new critical style analysis. I love it. We're going deep. Fabulous. I'm going to give just another minute or so for people to add into the chat. Ooh, Stephanie, I love that one. No arriving, embracing literacy as a journey. Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you. One of our goals within this is, especially when we're thinking, always throughout reading and the journey of literacy, we want to be focusing on literacy is fun and we love reading and all of the joy that comes with it. But I think particularly today, when we're focusing on phonemic awareness and phonics, we really want to connect to the nurture and joy and play. So I appreciate everybody getting fun with their titles. Thank you. And feel free to keep dropping them. And I'm just going to kind of move along, but I also will just make sure I'm still looking to see what's next. So I want you to imagine you have small group, maybe a large group of kindergartners. Okay, within your group of kindergartners, you probably have one student that's maybe struggling to hear that difference between B and P. Another can't quite sit still long enough to attend to what's happening. Another one is feeling really shy about reading out loud or sounding loud, and you want them all to learn the same phonemic awareness and phonics skills. How do we help everyone succeed? This concept of learner variability is really that we know all learners are different, right? Physically, cognitively, socially, emotionally, and the differences really affect how they access early reading instruction. And this idea of variability can be in how we as humans think and learn, and we're all unique. But then also, every experience we have throughout the day is unique, and it can shape our mood, our attitude, our energy levels. I mean, we're just constantly changing throughout the day. And just like adults can wake up with the wrong side of the bed, so do our children sometimes. And so all of this is kind of a ripple effect of our own, variability. And modern neuroscience really tells us that variability is actually the norm. All of us have these very, very unique brains. Although our school system might not exactly be set up naturally for that, we can absolutely make some slight shifts so that we can consider how to meet the variability of our learners within our classrooms. So we know some people need sound, some need movement, some need a little extra encouragement, and depending on the activity, these same students might need something slightly different on any given day. Variability. So if we had time, I would absolutely show you one of my very favorite Shelley Moore videos, which is the end of Average, where she talks about Todd Rose's book, The Myth of the Average. It is linked in the home base. I'm also going to throw it in the chat. Oh, Mimi's thrown it in the chat. Thank you so much. And then also Todd Rose's TED Talk around the same concept. So if you want to dive a little deeper into this concept of learner variability and kind of understanding that really there's no such thing as the average, both are fabulous resources and we recommend them. So the second part to this, another foundational concept within UDL is this idea of barriers to the learning. So we know that barriers are elements in the environment or a lesson that make it harder for students to learn. Some examples could be instructions are only spoken. Students don't have example of a visual, and materials are available maybe only in print. So no manipulatives or visuals. Maybe lessons are timed or competitive, and that kind of can create some stress. Maybe participation by raising hands or answering in front of the classroom, that can also create some anxiety. So the idea behind this is the barriers are not within the student, but they're within the environment. And it's just all of us face barriers throughout our entire day, right? And so the concept of barriers when it comes to UDL is just that it's the teacher's job, it's the educator's role to help remove some of those barriers. So this universal design for learning, it is, we'd spend a whole day talking about UDL. The idea is we just wanted to introduce this concept and then be able to sort of weave it throughout. But UDL is really about planning lessons that remove barriers to learning by really considering that learner variability within your classroom. And from that, creating multiple ways for learners to engage, perceive, and show their understanding. So again, we're just highlighting a little brief concept of variability and barriers, and we're just going to sprinkle it throughout for you today. But we really encourage you as you move through this three-part series, we'd love for you to really consider the variability of your own learners and really think about what barriers your readers are facing, and how can we help remove some of those barriers. So we really do want to get you guys collaborating and having conversations today. And so we are going to open up a breakout session, and we'd love for you to just have just about 5 minutes to really think about what have been your previous experiences with UDL, if any. Consider that variability of your own learners. What are general strengths within your classroom? What barriers do your learners encounter when it comes to reading? And then maybe what is one thing you're curious about when it comes to UDL? So I'm going to open some breakout sessions up, and they are just going to be randomly assigned. And let's see. All right, I'm going to open them up. And if for some reason, if people don't feel like going into breakout sessions and you'd prefer to just think about these on your own for a minute, we definitely want to honor that variability. Everyone can choose to participate however they like. And so if as I open these breakout sessions, if you choose not to go, I might end up moving someone just so that they're in a room with someone else. So if you're suddenly moved, it's probably because you didn't have a buddy or somebody else didn't have a buddy. And then Mimi, would you pause the recording too? So then that doesn't, yeah, perfect. Everyone had good remembering. I hope everyone had a good conversation. If anyone wants to unmute and share any highlights or add it to the chat, please feel free. But also, I don't want to put anyone on the spot at all. All right, I'm going to go ahead and monitor the chat and I'm going to pass it on to Mimi, who's going to talk a little bit about kind of that scope and sequence of reading skills.
Thanks, Emily. So let's ground our work in the reading of science. So the science of reading really centers around the big five. When we're talking about phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And they're all really interconnected. Phonemic awareness and phonics build word reading skills. Fluency links accuracy to meaning. And vocabulary supports understanding. And in the end, comprehension is the goal. And over the next 3 sessions, we'll focus on how these components interact and how to remove barriers so that every learner can engage with them. Session 1, like Emily mentioned, we're really target phonemic awareness and phonics because these are the foundational skills for decoding. And then session 2, we're going to bridge it into fluency and introduce how accessible materials and technology can support rate, accuracy, and prosody while strengthening those comprehension pathways. And we'll also introduce comprehension. And then for session 3, we'll dive deeper into comprehension and talk about vocabulary and how they all integrate, using UDL and digital supports to design lessons that pull all the strands together for meaningful reading outcomes. If you're really curious about the science reading report, you can dive deeper into the National Reading Panel report. We have it linked on the home-based document and also on the slide deck. Okay, before we jump into phonemic awareness, I want to talk a little bit about the policy update. In California, starting this year, there's going to be it's going to be required for universal screening for reading difficulties for the K-2 grade levels, and it's starting this year. And many states really have already implemented similar laws, but in California, it's becoming one of the latest to mandate it. The state's approved approach uses brief evidence-based screeners that focus on phonemic awareness and decoding risk. And so the intent is kind of early targeted intervention, not necessarily to label kids. So, and the goal of these screener is to use the data to guide how you group students and to monitor the progress with how curriculum is and bridging the gap. If you haven't already, check with your district to kind of see which screener they have chosen to adopt and what's their timeline that they're using. And for more information, you can go to the Department of Education Reading School website. All right, let's jump into kind of our content for today. When we talk about phonemic awareness, we have to remember that this is a subset of a really larger umbrella term known as phonological awareness. And phonological awareness refers to our ability to know sound structures in spoken language. And that speech can be broken down into smaller segments like words, syllables, onset rhymes, and phonemes. And then phonemic awareness is the understanding that words are made of individual sounds, phonemes, and the ability to play with them and manipulate that sound is also part of phonemic awareness skills. And reminder, when we're talking about phonemic awareness, we're not talking about phonics. Phonemic awareness is auditory and doesn't involve words in print yet. So keep that in mind, the yet part. Okay, so we know that phonemic awareness develops on a continuum from simple to more complex task. And this staircase graphic shows how the 6 skills build on one on top of each other. So let's kind of briefly walk through each of these steps together. When we're talking about phonemic phoneme isolations, we're talking about identifying a single sound in a word. So for example, the first word in sun is s. It's about hearing a sound without worrying about the letters yet. Blending is putting together the sounds to make a word. K, a, t becomes cat. And this skill is really critical because it connects directly to decoding when children start reading at the word level. And segmentation is breaking all these words into individual sounds. So dog becomes t, a, g. And segmentation supports spelling and writing because children are starting to map the sounds onto letters. So that's the connection to phonics. The next 3 skills are known as phoneme manipulations, and that's when we start playing around with the phonemes. Addition is adding a sound to a new word. So let's add s to top to get stop. And deletion takes a sound away to form a new word. So smile without s is smile. And substitution is changing one sound for another. So we're replacing things like in map with t to make tap. So when we're thinking of phoneme manipulation skills, it's really important because it strengthens the student's flexibility with language and increases their awareness of kind of how word structures are formed and prepares them for more complex decoding and spelling. And these skills really require strong phonemic awareness and are really powerful predictor of later reading achievement. So it's really directly linked. Since these skills build on top of each other, instruction should really start with the basic and progress towards the more complex manipulation task. So we want to make sure that we have kind of the phoneme isolation, blending, and segmentation really down before we move on to the other ones. Okay, so now that we know the skills, what we should be teaching, how should we teach it? What are some of the evidence-based instructional practice and strategies we can apply when we're teaching phonemic awareness? The research tells us that we really need to use explicit, systematic instruction. So curriculum like the Haggerty Phonemic Awareness one, which is Connect to Common Core, or SIP, the Systematic Instruction in Phonological Awareness, Phonics, and Sight Words. And there are also some free programs available if your district or schools don't have these curriculum. The Tennessee Department of Education created one called the Sound First program, and it walks you through a couple of years of curriculum, and it provides a lesson plan. It's a really great tool if your district doesn't have a curriculum in place, and it's all researcher-based. A quick kind of check in the chat. Do any of these programs sound familiar to you guys? Do you use them, or are you familiar with them? See a couple of head nods. Those are the pretty common ones around this area. Okay, so back to kind of those research practices. We know that we want to teach 1 or 2 skills at a time and progressing from the simple one to the complex. And we really want to prioritize blending and segmenting because these are the foundational skills. We know for some of our earliest learners, attention is the issue. So we want to keep it brief, 10 to 15, and you have to make it engaging. You have to capture their interests. Ideally, we want to teach in small groups or individually. And then whenever possible, using manipulatives or multisensory supports. And we'll talk more about how we can incorporate that into lessons in the next few slides. And I know that earlier, I kind of mentioned that phonemic awareness is about sounds. However, there's also research that suggests that integrating letters early on into instruction can be powerful and help bridge the skills to phonics. So you're really going to have to look at your learners and see if they're ready to make that jump. Let's take a look at some of the strategies and tools we can use to support phonemic awareness. What's really wonderful about phonemic awareness is that you don't really need a lot of materials. Just your voice, some words, and some really engaged learners, and you can get a lot of things done. So using voice and body tool makes learning really active and multisensory, which keeps our student engaged and really supports all the different diverse learning needs in our classroom. So oral games are a great way to practice phonemic awareness. So think things like a sound detective. You're going to ask students to listen for a target sound word and identify where they hear it. In the beginning, the middle, or the end. So for example, maybe I want to take a quick break in the classroom. I might say, hey, which oh, sorry, I went ahead of myself. This particular example is which word starts with the S sound? Sun, man, top. And then when they say, oh, sun, 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 you can kind of cue them and say, hey, where did you hear that? Was that at the beginning, the middle, or the end of it? And it kind of orients their attention to kind of the sounds and primes their brain ready. You could also do things like add a sound, right? You can ask students to add a phoneme to make new words. Hey, can you guys add S to top? What does that make? And then kids will kind of say, oh, stop. So lots of different fun games like that you can do throughout the day. Connecting it to UDL, when I was creating the slide decks, one of the ways we can do choices for a kid is that maybe you want to create a choice board. I did a little bit of example right here. And you want to create a choice board for the oral games so that it gives them a chance for student agency and they can choose how they want to practice that skills, right? Do you want to play sound detective? Do you want to add a sound? Do you want to change it? Do you want to find it? And it gives them kind of ownership of their own learning. Activities that support the whole body also creates great opportunities for those movement breaks throughout the days. You know, these 5s and 6-year-olds that we're teaching are going to have a hard time sitting through a lesson. So these are great ways to break up lessons. And it also connects sound awareness to movement, which can also increase memory. So like I mentioned earlier, it could be like a quick scavenger hunt, right? We can say, hey, can you guys find something in the classroom that starts with the sound buh? So now everyone's looking for buh sounds and they can help each other. They can collaborate. A great way to kind of increase that engagement for our student. And then what about like making their bodies move for the day? So we're kind of getting those wiggly things out. Maybe each time we're presenting a word, we say, hey guys, can you jump forward once for each of the sound you hear? So an example would be like, I'm thinking of the word sun. Let's jump for S, and they bounce and they jump or skip, and then and then and then another one would be kind of involving kind of reaching and touching. Hey guys, can you touch your head and shoulder for each of the sound you hear? So I might say, hey, I'm thinking of the word dog. Can you show me the sound? And they might go, D, ah, good. So now they're connecting movement with a sound. And it's also fun, right? Instead of just kind of, hey guys, listen to me talk. Even simple hand motion, like those used in the Haggerty routines, make phonemic skills visible and interactive. It really supports multiple means of engagement, presentation, and expression. And we're going to watch a quick video of how that's done.
Say pencil. Pencil. Without soul, there's pen. Very good. All right. Say candy. Candy. Without D, there's can. Very good. Say letter. Letter. Without there's letter. Very good.
So I really kind of like how that teacher was engaging with all of them. And then you can notice they also had like optional seating. Some kids were sitting on the floor, some were sitting on the desk, to providing options for our kiddos. So next I want to talk about hands-on tools. So hands-on tools can turn sound into tangible actions, which helps our student remember and manipulate phonemes. When we're using manipulative for a sound play, it's really a great way to keep those little fingers busy, right? We're not poking our friends if we have some manipulatives to play with. Use magnetic letters, sound chips, or rubber bands to map out phonemes and to play with the phonemes and to swap sounds fluently. An example is an Elkonin box, or also known as a sound box, and this is a common practice that some of you may be familiar with. It gives a sequential visual for each of the phoneme. We place a token per sound to practice segmenting and blending. And I'm going to take a quick video, see a quick video of this.
O, word, good, we'll go. Okay, next one. Word, good, we'll go.
So connecting it back to kind of the UDL and kind of providing different ways to engage your student and offer choices. You know, you may want to consider creating a box with the different manipulatives and have it set each who or when you read your instructions, kids can pick which one resonates with them. Do you want to use the chips, the rubber band, magnetic levers? So it's kind of a UDL quick tip. And what the manipulatives do is that they make abstract sound, this thing called sounds, and they makes it concrete and it supports working memory. Other things you may want to consider are personal whiteboards or sand trays. These really kind of give kind of students low stake pressure to write letters, erase them, and try again. They're also a quick way to do like a formative check to see what students are doing and what they know. Whisper phone, those are another great way for students to interact with lighting and improve for self-monitoring. You can buy them or make them with short PVC tube and colorful duct tape. We did this recently at our county office literacy event, and it was like a huge hit. And you may want to do this at the beginning of the year as you're introducing your EL lessons, right? It's this great engaging activity, getting this buy-in, and the kids have their own agency in making it. Oh, Emily kind of mentioned her kids love this so much that they asked for this at the station at their next birthday party. Yeah, it was a really fun activity to do and really cost effective. And they dropped a chat, a link in the chat for how to make them, lots of options out in the web. So let's move on to talking about digital tools. When we're talking about digital tools for phonemic awareness and bringing it into the digital workspace, our goal is to make sound visible, repeatable, and motivating. The Alcona box I mentioned earlier can be made using Google Slide or a PowerPoint. So imagine this, a student has their own individual Alcona box printed out, and a teacher could use a digital Alcona box that they made or purchased and project it as a visual support. And there are many tutorials and versions of that out there to make digital Alcona box. I'm going to show you a quick one, okay, and how we manipulate it.
Listen to the word on each slide. Then help me say each sound in the word. Watch as I move my counters for each sound in the word. You can follow along at home. If you don't have counters, you can use 3 small blocks or Legos. You can draw 3 boxes on a paper. Let's begin. Sun. Say the word sun. Now let's say each sound. S, n. Let's move our counters. S, n.
Right. All right. So those digital Alcona blocks are a good way to provide that visual support for our kiddos who may need more than just listening to your teacher share the knowledge. And let's say you're short on time. There are also some supports called Booty Card. Have you guys heard of that before? So what they are, that they're like pre-made digital cards that you can purchase, and you can find them on all kinds of different topics, including from the awareness fund. And the idea behind this support is that they really allow for students to kind of see what segmentation and blending looks like in real time, which is helpful for those visual learners and even those students with limited working memory. So next, let's think about how we can increase engagement. Have we thought about maybe making a game out of some of these lessons? Tools like Kahoot could be a great way to kind of make it an interactive game that students can get quick feedback on and see ways that keep their attention. Another way that we can practice maybe skills, maybe incorporating short replayable activity like those found in web app like Starfall or ICT games. So if a student has access to a Chromebook at school, or even at home, teachers may want to consider doing this during, let's say, a center time, which means we're working individually with other students. The students can practice the same skills multiple times with consistent prompt and feedback independently. Finally, kind of the next tool you can play with when you're thinking of phonemic awareness is using an AI tool like Magic School. Within Magic School, you can create audios and song makers. And so what about turning a blending activity into a catchy, repeatable tunes? Rhythm and melody can make blending more automatic and memorable. So for example, when I asked the Magic School AI tool to create a blending original song, they kind of put it to the sound of bingo, B-I-N-G go. And some of the lyrics they gave me was, the farmer had a pig and P-I-G was his name, oh, and you kind of would sing it to it, P-I-G, P-I-G, and P-I-G was his name, oh, so I was playing with ChatGPT, but Magic School, they kind of gave that as a little fun activity. So just some other ways to engage our students. And the big idea behind digital tools that when we pair on-screen visual with audios and tactile elements, either like a token or a whiteboard, it creates a stronger multisensory learning for our students. So before Emily tells us more about phonics and we dive deeper into it, we're going to take a quick breakout session to kind of check in and see what are some of the strategies that you are probably already doing in your schools with the teacher that you support. We have a Padlet that we've created that will be used throughout all 3 sessions. And this is a collaborative document where participants can add their own strategies and ideas. It's linked in the home-based document and we're dropping in the chat as well. So please feel free to add any of the ideas that come up, okay? These are some of the questions we want you to consider when you're in your breakout session. What's a strategy or support for phonemic awareness that's been mentioned that you are already using in your classroom? Is there one new strategy that you've heard that you could try out? And what's a barrier you noticed your students having when it comes to phonemic awareness? And what strategy might you use to remove that barriers? So Emily's going to make some breakout rooms for us, and we're going to get a few minutes to share.
I would love if participants could maybe put in the chat, how many minutes do you think is ideal for a breakout session? And I would say 3 to 7 is what you're voting on. Just throw it in the chat, and I'm going to go ahead and recreate and open up some breakouts. Awesome, 5. Okay, my gut was 5, so I'm glad I heard 5. All right, rooms are open. Welcome back, everyone. All right, thank you, thank you. Hopefully you guys had some good conversation, and please remember to go ahead and add to that Padlet. That's something that, you know, throughout the training will, or throughout all 3 sessions, we'll slowly but surely add to it. So feel free to keep adding to that, and feel free to share anything from your conversations that you want to add to the chat. Okay. So we're going to dive into phonics here, which I'm sure many of you know is that process of really using relationships between letters within written language and then also those sounds, right? So that ultimate goal within phonics instruction is to help our children read, to learn to use the alphabetic principle, and then be able to decode written language or read. And so within that skill progression, where we know it's going to start with that letter sound knowledge, then it's going to go into that blending and segmenting, and it's going to start with CVC words, and then we're going to start adding digraphs and beginning blends, and then those long vowels and vowel teams, and then slowly but surely we're going to go into the multisyllabic words and morphology. Barry, thank you so much for putting that in the chat. He says, not science of reading per se, but really great findings about science of learning generally. Thank you so much for adding that. I'll check it out for sure. All right. So I want to highlight, since we kind of sprinkled some UDL in the beginning, we talked about that learner variability and removing barriers, but one of the things that we know, the UDL framework is really a list of specific ways that human beings are able to engage, perceive, and understand, and be able to show their knowledge when it comes to learning. And one of those things that we as humans really need in order to deeply engage with our learning is we need joy and play. And so I think this is a great session to really highlight this, because Reading is fun, and especially with our early childhood, we want to really make sure we're reinforcing that reading is fun, phonics is exciting, phonemic awareness is exciting. And I love this quote: when children play with sounds and words, they're not just having fun, they're wiring their brains for reading. Joyful learning releases dopamine, strengthening memory and motivation. So laughter and literacy truly go hand in hand. And another thing that we really know from UDL is that learning is emotional work. So the more positive connections we can make when it comes to learning, there is quite a ripple effect when it comes to retention of knowledge and just also general love of school and learning and all that fun stuff, of course. So we're going to dive into some ideas, but and specific lessons. So really the idea is, how can we make letter sound knowledge and blending into fun activities for your whole class and also for those center activities? So a lot of these are just going to be some ideas to get you guys thinking a little bit about how can we make this just a little bit more fun, right? So one example is kind of a mystery bag sound hunt. Students take turns pulling an item out of a bag, identifying that sound, and then finding the letter card that matches the sound. You can do this hunt outdoors. You could make this part of a pre-recess game every single day. It could be part of your routine and rhythm. Lots of different ways to do this. A letter sound treasure hunt. So you can scatter letter cards across the classroom on walls, floors, tables, call out a sound. Teacher says, all right, find a sound, B. And then everybody hunts for that word, right? And they find the correct word. Students can hold it up, say the sound, and then you could even have them think of a word that starts with the letter. They could become a team challenge. So many ways to make this just a fun thing. And honestly, this could be 5 to 7 minutes. I mean, a quick and easy. It could even be a brain break. I know in classrooms, we love to do brain breaks that are like movements and, following a dance move or any of those brain breaks that you can find online. But activities like this can absolutely be, quote unquote, a brain break where we're standing around moving our body, but we're also actually very much connecting it to literacy and practicing. So shout out to getting creative with some of our brain breaks here. I love this one so much, is really one of the pieces that I know definitely a barrier in school for so many children, but especially our youngest learners, is that deep desire for movement. How can we integrate educational ways to add movement, right? So I love this letter sound hopscotch, really creating a hopscotch grid with letters instead of numbers, call out a sound, and students have to hop to the square with the matching letter and then say the letter of the sound. You could even have them again add a word. This could be hopscotch for words. So many things you could do. And I would say if you were outside, you could do teams and create 4 hopscotch grids and kind of rotate through. You can absolutely do it in the class with some tape, but I would say outdoors is probably a little easier depending on what your own tolerance of shenanigans indoors is. Pictures instead of letters is another great option for kind of if we wanted to go back to that phonemic awareness and really just thinking about those sounds. So lots of ways that you can get creative with this, but I just kind of wanted to call out a few fun ways to really think about that letter sound knowledge. Ooh, I love this one. So alphabetic fishing, and this I think would be a really good one for center time, having like a little pretend pond, could be a bin, a tray, whatever you want, with magnetic letters or laminated letter cards and a small fishing rod with either magnets or paper clips, and then magnetic letters are in the pond. Students take turns fishing for the letter. They say the name of the letter and the sound. You can do this with blending as well, and actually just have CVC words for them to blend, practice with consonant digraphs, so many different things that you can do with this kind of concept of fishing. Creating a spinner and match those letters. create a spinner with like a piece of paper and a little paper clip in the middle and some letter cards or laminated cards. And students will spin the spinner, land on a letter, and then they find the picture card that starts with that letter sound, says the letter and the sound, and then places the picture next to the matching letter. Again, you can also do this with blending and have, different ways that you're maybe rolling a dice and spinning a spinner for the beginning and ending sounds, and then blending them together as well. Just some ways to kind of make some games out of things. So we're going to watch a little video on some kinesthetic learning strategies for blending. One of the things that we really know is that oftentimes a barrier for our learners is when we're practicing blending, sometimes we tend to do it in the same way over and over at cat. And for our students that might get kind of stuck at that level or at that process, oftentimes kinesthetic learning can be a great addition to a new strategy. And there's a few different ways to do this. This video it is one example, and I'll talk a little bit about the resource afterwards.
S-A, ship. C-A, chimp.
Because we combine movement and literacy, our students are able to build foundational skills for future learning. Connecting movement and letters is helpful because if you're doing a familiar motion, you are going to create that muscle memory. Once they have that, the fluency will come.
Everyone put your hands up, wiggle around, get all your wiggles out, put your hands back
So we
down.
use a mix of 3 strategies, and they hit so many different learners. The first strategy that we teach is using our fingers.
Can you show me what you would do with your fingers?
You tap them when there's a sound.
You would do a CVC word, so a consonant, vowel, consonant. You touch the beginning, middle, and end, and then you blend it together. The next strategy that we have is using our arm. So it's a bigger strategy, it's more tactile. So beginning, middle, end, blend it together.
You do this
I swipe down. Why would I do that?
to blend it all together.
To blend it all together.
If a student were to struggle, then you can stop, or you can say, hey, if this is your beginning, middle, or end, and you just want the middle sound, tell me what you hear at your elbow.
Ache.
Our last one that we do is our phonics in motion.
What word did you just say? Good work.
Every motion is a feeling. So when you say zzz for Z, like you feel that throughout your body so that the students then feel it and remember it. Oh, Z makes me feel like this. This is the sound. Zzz. And they're hearing it. They're feeling it. You're making that motion.
I am going to write a word up on our whiteboard, and I want you to use one of the 3 strategies that we just talked about. Fingers, arm, phonics, and motion.
They're able to choose which strategy works best for them because what may work for me may not work for my neighbor.
Dig.
The end goal is to be able to decode that word and be able to sound out and blend. When I look at the movement piece, that works for all learners in the classroom, no matter what level they are at, because of that muscle memory. Reading is hard. There are many steps that the student has to understand before they even actually get to the reading process itself. So when they're doing those movements with that strategy, it just comes natural to them.
Great job, Arlo.
We have done this for probably 5 or 6 years now, and the growth that I have seen personally with students is just amazing.
Again. In. What's my word?
Okay, I love this video for a lot of reasons, but the fact that she highlights multiple strategies that her students can use allows them to have a choice, and you're really thinking about the barriers her learners might be facing when it comes to blending is fantastic. So this phonics in motion that she mentions, it is a paid resource, but I also think it's extremely extremely reasonable. So it's $37 a year to have access to all of the movements that come with it, and then you teach students. So I did put a link in the chat, and I think like $37 a year. I'm like, okay, I kind of want to purchase it and learn it myself because I just think it's so great. But definitely this idea of kinesthetic learning is just so powerful. And like she said, although others might be able to learn in different ways, everybody is going to benefit from the kinesthetic piece. And so there's no harm in teaching everyone. And also what you might have noticed is those kindergarten friends on that carpet are fully engaged. And I think sometimes that kinesthetic piece, even for those that might not fully need it in order to get that phonics skill, they are really enjoying it as an engagement tool, and they're sitting on that carpet. Most of them have their hands in their square, even with all their movement. But, there's nothing harder than a small child sitting and receiving. And so as much as they can be moving and being part of it, I think is so powerful and important. So a few blending activities for center time. I mean, this is just lots of different ideas here, and you can take any of these and make them for blending or for letter sound, just playing around. But, having some cards that are labeled as beginning, middle, and end, and kind of add, students are flipping these cards to create beginning, middle, and ending sounds and blending. Honestly, sometimes when they're made up words, it's even more fun and they think it's super silly. And sometimes they can decide, is it a real or is it a pretend? And then when it is a pretend, sometimes I think it's fun to do a bonus. Like if this were a real word, what would the definition be? What would it mean? Just like a fun little thing to add to it. But just some blending activity ideas there. Can you move me? No, thank you. Okay. So I want to highlight, there's so many great digital resources to support phonics. As a teacher, I was always very concerned with, okay, if I'm going to make this a center activity and it's a digital tool, are they going to be able to independently access it? Are there going to be pop-ups that come in the way? A lot of these free resources do have some pop-ups or things, and are they going to be able to navigate? And so I wanted to highlight my absolute favorite, which is Khan Academy Kids. There are so many different things Khan Academy Kids does have, but to focus on the phonics piece, they really have lots of interactive games for letter recognition, sounds, phonemic awareness, phonics skills, practicing decoding words and simple sentences. They gradually increase the skill levels with visual and audio support. Teachers can assign specific phonics lessons, but also for each individual student that logs in, it will just take them through their own scope and sequence. And when they do make a mistake, it'll repeat the same thing in a different way and change things up. It also includes audiobooks and read alouds with some great stories as well. So a really fun resource. It is linked in the home base, and then Mimi also just dropped it in the chat. And so I do want to show you a little video example here. Mimi, will you pass me remote as well? Thank you.
You have control.
Okay. Oh, I have control. Sorry, it popped up and I didn't even see it. Thank you. Okay. So this is kind of a longer video. We're not going to watch the whole thing. This was my favorite video that I could find that showed what Khan Academy Kids can do, but I am going to skip around a little bit because the teacher the teacher that's doing this does end up adding to what the children see by adding some red writing. That's not part of Khan Academy Kids, but just so you know, she's adding that piece.
No, do we get on to the next one? I don't know. We probably should.
Makes the k sound, like in the word cat. That's a cute cat.
So like a little lesson identifying a sound, and then it goes into some practice where it'll show different pictures and call out like which one of these, it's more interactive. So which one of these starts with a k sound, and it'll show some pictures. So I'll show you a little example of that.
Camera. Cloud.
know it's a little slow. But some really good games that are in here. And most children that I have done this with are just like riveted by it. There is something about the voices very calming and soothing, and they're very engaged and into it in general. But I also think the scope and sequence of it is really thoughtful and well planned. Yeah, it's just if I was going to highlight one digital tool, this is it.
Cube.
Yay! You found them! All of these things start with the sound. Tap them all and listen to the sound at the beginning.
So again, it is interactive. There's a lot going on here. So we can move on to the next. I just kind of want to show you an example of what students would see. So I want to highlight a few tools that we can be using to support our struggling readers. So this is the tricky part, right? Most children that are learning phonics are probably younger, but of course we have our students that are maybe struggling to read, or they're just not quite at the text complexity of their same grade level peers. And so, text to speech is a wonderful strategy to be using with our students to really help them have opportunities to access grade level text. It supports decoding and fluency. It really can improve comprehension by letting our students really focusing on the meaning, not just the decoding. But it really can, again, provide that access to grade level text for those who might not have it. So students can absolutely follow along while reading. You can use it for worksheets or articles, digital books. There's lots of great text-to-speech opportunities that are kind of built in, which is fantastic. Natural Reader is a Google extension, one example. Some people really like it because it removes the clutter of a website. But when it does that, it also reads every single thing that's on the page, which some people find a little annoying. My very favorite is always Google Read and Write. I'm not going to go into great deep depth. In our second and third session, we're going to be highlighting a lot of tech tools. And so please dive into those next sessions. I don't want to be redundant at all, but the feature that includes hover text is part of the free version, so you don't even have to have the paid version, but any website you open, you just hover your cursor over what you want to read and it reads and highlights. And even the free version has a pretty good sounding voice. It's not fully AI, it's not fully human, but it's not a total robot by any means. And so it really allows that students to be able to find exactly what they want read aloud versus just read this whole page verbatim. So the other thing I really want to highlight is just the benefit of audiobooks. The more we can really make, again, I keep saying it, reading fun and exciting. One of the huge barriers that I find, my own children are learning phonics right now. They're young and they love stories. We've read to them for years and years. It's their favorite thing in the world. And so there is nothing more painful to them than having to read a small decodable like the cat sat. I mean, it's painful. Those are not the stories that 6, 7, 8-year-olds want to be reading. And so especially if they are struggling readers, that's a painful thing for them to have to listen to over and over. And so the more we can kind of use some audiobooks to just increase their practice in being able to follow along with the book and also hear a story that's exciting and engaging, the better. It's fantastic as a center activity for practicing all kinds of things. But of course, the question is, how do we access some audiobooks for our class? I want to highlight a few things. The first one is Bookshare, which we actually semi-recently, a few months ago, did a Bookshare webinar. And so we hosted them and kind of dove into all of the resources available. It is a fabulous, fabulous resource. It is available for students with a documented reading disability. And so this isn't something that's a free resource for everyone, but definitely for students with learning disabilities. And so if you do have a student with a disability that you think could benefit from that, feel free to check out the webinar. There's links to the resources also in our home base as well. Learning Ally is an incredible resource. Audiobooks all have very real voices, great variety of textbooks, novels, etc. It is a paid resource, so it's $135 a year for access to the library. This is one that if you're a teacher and has access to PTC funds or any type of, your principal gives you X amount of dollars or school site for X, Y, or Z, this is a great resource to dive into. And their website has some really good examples so you can listen and see what they have before you decide. So definitely recommend checking out. And then, of course, a shout out to your local library, because libraries are just my favorite thing ever. A lot of our libraries now have things called Wonder Books. And so it's a book, regular book, but it has a button and it's fully embedded into the book. So you just press a play button, it reads the book, and students can follow along. Audiobooks on CD. I still get these all the time for my children. We definitely have Discman at home. I am a big fan of the Discman, and I think it's just an easy thing we can have as centers, low tech, inexpensive, a fun way for students to be following along. And then also the Libby app. Again, this is all linked on the home base document if you want to dive deeper, but Libby has ebooks and audiobooks that you can check out virtually from your library, and they can go straight onto your iPad or your Android tablet, but students can access that in your class as well. And again, it does highlight the words, which I think is fantastic. And then I do also want to call out that Khan Academy Kids does have audiobooks as well. Totally free resource. You can actually get Khan Academy Kids on Google Chrome, iPad. It is an app, but if you have access to Google Play Store, so wait, what am I saying? Google Play. Is that what it is? Yes. Then you can add it to your Chromebook as well. So this is something that if you are a school site that just has Chromebooks, you can access this as well. I'll play just a brief piece of it so you can see the way that it reads.
Why? By Cynthia Platt. Rhea had her nose in a book. What are you reading? Asked Peck. A book about bugs, Rhea replied. She loved talking about reading. Why? Asked Peck.
So it does highlight the words. It's a more engaging book than maybe, or the idea behind it is that it's slightly above our students' current reading level so that it's pushing them to read different words, have access to a story that's maybe a little more engaging than the Cat Sat if they're still decoding CVC words. But it's got that, pushes that a little bit. So I want to call out, very common barriers that we see for students when it comes to accessing phonemic awareness and phonics. Of course, that attention and sustained focus, that anxiety maybe from previous reading experiences, depending on how phonics and phonemic awareness were introduced at home or in the very early childhood, preschool, TK, whatever it is, students might be nervous and might already feel like they're behind, even though it's a skill that everybody is just constantly learning. Could be some working memory variability in the class, and some connect with the lessons right away and some maybe not so much. Previous vocabulary exposure can absolutely be a barrier. Everyone's going to have a different background knowledge within your classroom when it comes to their experiences with phonemic awareness and phonics. Maybe practice has only been available in one mode, auditory only or visual only, and having that combination, and then maybe even adding that kinesthetic would be a great way to take it to the next level. Maybe different accents or articulation being used in the classroom than from home or previous experiences. And then maybe all these activities being done seated, that could be a huge barrier for our students that need more movement. And so some ways we might be able to remove those barriers, if we're connecting to this to UDL, we know having those clear student-friendly goals is so important, but creating those playful routines around rhyming and storytelling and just, making reading fun. Letting students maybe choose what materials or tasks they're using. Are we doing magnetic letters or sandpaper? A variety of modalities to learn those sounds, emphasizing the shape of your mouth, including a gesture with the sound, etc. using the variety of modalities to practice when it comes to tactile, stamps, auditory, pen, paper, matching. And then again, the more we can integrate that movement and that joy, stand up, chat with a partner, move centers, make shapes with your body while singing, hop to the letter, sound scavenger hunts, all these fun things that we talked about. So we have come to sort of the end of our session here, or close to the end of our session. And I think for the sake of time, we're going to maybe skip the breakout session and instead love to maybe utilize the chat or unmute. But I would love for us to think about any or all of these, the following questions. Are there any strategies you've seen that maybe you want to try in your classroom? Were there any strategies that seemed challenging to implement? How might you overcome those challenges? And how might these strategies change how students experience phonics?
Start off,
All good. All right. So feel free to add to the chat or feel free to unmute. No pressure at all. And then also that Padlet resource is there. Thank you so much for contributing to that. Ooh, Rudy says he's going to try Learning Ally. Awesome. Fantastic. Learning Ally is one I even looked at just getting at my own house. I'm like, it's expensive, but I don't know. For now, I'm using the library, but it's on my list if the library starts running out of the books we want. Amanda says it's great. Awesome. Thank you, guys. All right. Feel free to add anything as we're moving forward here. I'm going to pass it to Mimi for our intentional close.
So we've kind of talked a little bit about, thinking about the tools that we introduced, we're using in your files, some takeaways. So we want you to take a minute to think of a takeaway that you want to try and why. It could be an idea, a strategy, a tool, and an action step. So maybe if you're already using some of these strategies and tools or supporting teachers who are already using these tools, was there like a UDL tweak that you could add in to make it a little bit more accessible? For example, incorporating the visuals on choice boards or some of the tactile options that we talk about. So feel free to kind of unmute or share in the chat.
We're all shy.
It's really Stephanie kind of said, as someone who supports teacher, I think the volume of resources can be overwhelming. Definitely appreciate the method you use of modeling different resources so teachers got an example of things. Definitely. And one of the reasons we created that palette was it's true. There's so many resources for each of the different areas of reading, and our intent is kind of choose your own adventure, right? Here's a palette of all these information broken down to these 5 areas of reading. Pick one that resonates with you or that stood out for you. And then that could just be enough. We'll just pick one and see what it looks like in our classroom. And that's okay. Just do that one more approach. Well, Amanda said Magic School is an amazing teacher resource, not only for reading, but for other subjects as well. Definitely. Rudy, did you want to jump in?
No, I just read that the one about Magic School. I'm wondering if that's the Magic School AI one or just Magic School in general. Because I've heard teachers use the Magic School AI one.
Yeah, that's the one we were referencing. And I kind of talked about you could create a song in it, but there is a whole bunch of different tools that you can go and explore there as well. But
there's about 88 tools within the Magic School AI, and it's free. As of right now, I'm sure with the way the world goes, they might start adding some fees to us, but currently it's free. And there's not only the song generator, there's worksheet generators, image generators, lesson plan generators, like anything that will make teachers' lives easier. Magic School has a lot of tools in there to
So,
support you.
so what category does that fall under? It's like an
Any and all.
all-in-one.
Any and all.
Any and all. Sure.
Whatever floats your boat, Magic School
Yeah.
will find a way to float it.
Great.
If you guys think of more ideas you want to share, feel free to keep adding to the chat up here on meeting. So before we take off, we really would love some of your feedback. It really helps us to know how we can improve for the next session, and what's missing, what's included, what we want to learn more about. So you can kind of that is not the slide, guys. This slide talks about kind of our open access newsletter and our website, so additional resource for you to explore if you want to know more about it. Emily, thank you so much. You just dropped the feedback chat in the link, so if you wouldn't mind taking a few minutes to fill it out and give us your feedback, we would really appreciate it. We do read through them and cater our trainings to kind of meet the need. We're also on social media, so if you have Facebook, Instagram, X, or YouTube, you can find our content there as well. It's updated pretty regularly. And the feedback code can also, feedback survey can be accessed also with the QR code if you want to use your mobile devices. And just as we kind of wrap up, we just want to give a big thank you for all the participants today joining with us and adding your insight. And we hope to see you for the next session. And the next session we've kind of talked about will be going into fluency, comprehension, and a little bit more of digital tools. And that session is going to be in about a week's time. Off the top of my head, but it's also in a home-based document. Yeah. And we'll stick around for a few more minutes after. So once you're done with the session, if you want to chat or anything else, please feel free to unmute yourself. Oh, November 5th. Thank you, Amanda. Oh, perfect. Emily chimed in too. You guys are on it. So otherwise, have a great day. We really appreciate your time today.